I do think you can't take the same brush and assume that all countries are the same. And that also it presents a challenge. If I were to try to categorize in some respects, you have almost one bucket of high growth, almost middle income countries. They have energy access, and in many cases, their primary source of energy or their only source of energy really is coal. So those economies need to think about how do we quickly wean off of coal to a greener solution. How do we repurpose all of those people that are working in those industries and find those greener jobs, training them in the greener jobs? So it is not so much an access question. It is a how quickly can we decarbonize or find a better solution question. Then I have another group of countries, which one would often call the frontier markets. They are at that very, very early day of just wanting access to electricity or heat or what have you. There, it's a different equation. We're not necessarily talking about coal decommissioning. We're talking about how do we leapfrog or go directly to green. Two different equations. At the same time, there are hundreds of thousands of people probably that are invested in the coal industry. And part of this is early coal decommissioning. So if we're going to do that, what are we going to do with all of those people? We must think about that people agenda and retraining them for those green jobs of the future. In our old days of banking and the private capital markets, things were very silo driven. We didn't necessarily collaborate in this way with our peers because we were considered arch rivals or competitors. Now, with this recognition, this is so big and so critical and so important for the world. This partnership is real. And we sit in the rooms with, our former competitors and our existing competitors, and we all say we've got to solve this problem together. And each of us has something to bring to bear. It is very clear to me that if this is going to be a sustainable proposition, there has to be a commercial proposition associated with it. So you need to make commercial returns. We are in business as a profit-making enterprise to make money. But I also believe that when you have something that's born out of necessity, there is a commercial opportunity that's involved in that. Now, clearly, we see the purpose part of this, and that drives everything, what we do. That's our North Star in sustainability. Up until now, I'd say the agenda for sustainability was largely dominated by the West. So rules of sustainability, best practice, frameworks, all of that was largely driven, mostly in our time zone, the EU taking a big leadership position. Standard Chartered has 59 footprint markets. We're an organization of 85,000 people, so a vast reach. And as you say, we have been a global trade bank for 150 years in many of these countries. The West has benefited from participating in the high carbon emitting industries and is now trying to reform, but project that onto these developing markets. These developing markets have the same aspirations for prosperity and economic development that the West has. In many cases, they are dependent on coal as their primary source of energy. So this automatic assumption that the world's off of coal is not the reality in many of my markets. In other of my markets, they're just at that very early days of just getting energy access in the first place. So we need to take into account where on the curve, the development curve, these countries are, and then help them on that journey. How can we think about a different model for them? But most importantly, how do we bring them along? Because if these countries, India, China, Pakistan, Indonesia, Vietnam, are not on a net zero journey in the same way we are, it's kind of game over for humanity.